5 mods I do to cars but never to motorcycles. So let me explain this title. Obviously I don't mean literally putting designed for car mods on motorcycles. What I mean is like these are usually mods that I would see myself doing for my car or have already done to cars but never to motorcycles. Forced induction. It's as yo mama always said, it's what's on the inside that counts, and she definitely meant forged internals. Don't you ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Now that I do have forged internals, you would probably think that boosting is next on the list. After all, I made it clear that I liked power and I'm doing performance mods for bikes. I'm not gonna lie, I thought about that too for some period of time. I was like, hey, you know, why settle for this power when we can make north of 280 horsepower of a supercharger kit? Well, the answer is kind of simple. Turns out bikes are extremely ever living fast with their quote unquote low horsepower numbers. To give you perspective, a Hayabusa has 180-ish horsepower and 100-ish pound-feet of torque depending on generations. A Ducati Diavolo has 165 horsepower and 93 torque. My bike had 138, 142 on the dyno, so I'm too lazy to convert those numbers, but the point is, that's a solid amount of torque, and heck, that's still a very strong horsepower number for the bike. All those bikes, as well as my own bike that I've timed, can go well under 3 seconds, and this is passing a lot of supercars several times the price, sometimes even rivaling hypercars. A lot of people aren't that impressed by motorcycle horsepower and torque numbers. They go, 100 horsepower, that's not that fast, and little do they know, 100 horsepower bikes, 120 horsepower bikes tend to already get 3 something 0 to 60. By the time you get north of 150, you tend to go under 3. By the time you have over 200 horsepower, you're just on a psycho machine. Well, like, yes, there are supercharged bikes that even eclipse 300, but they are literally just absolute land missiles. I'm kind of already satisfied with the speed. I'm kind of already over it. Do I actually need something this ridiculously fast? And I never ever had this realization with cars. Like, I've sat in cars that have 1200 horsepower, 1400 horsepower, yet I wouldn't dare mimic that on a bike just because the raw speed and the sheer wind force, it's a constant reminder of just, hey buddy, should you really be going this fast? Especially since the bike I have is a fairingless bike, so I feel all of the wind. In my Z06 at 800 horsepower, there are times where I still think to myself how I might get a bigger blower, because right now it's a 1.7 liter Eaton supercharger. I still think about the 2.3 liter Heartbeat, and I still ask people about this and that Whipple, and it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that cars get into the thousands to just accomplish what some motorcycles can do in the 150s for horsepower. Who knows? Give me 2 more years and maybe I'll eat my own words and I'll have a TTS supercharger kit on my FXDR after all, and this entry is just going to be a moot point. I mean, I do already have my comp ramp, clutch, internals, pistons, and others built for it, so literally the only thing that I'm missing is the boost kit, and it's at this point I realize I need to stop myself and move on to the next entry before I end up browsing forced induction after recording this. Decals, vinyls / Tasha or Itansha. But bladed, why haven't you Tasha'd your motorcycle yet? I get this tweet probably more than I should. I get it talked to me on Instagram a lot, and in general people in comments still ask me this. They go, if you Tasha'd your car, why don't you do this to your bike? Well, first off, actually it's called Itansha when a bike does it. I'm sorry I had to do that actually to you guys. I see people do it to me still to this day. But yeah, technicality aside, I'm just gonna call it a Tasha for this entry. I don't care about doing a Tashas for motorcycles. It's not that, like, look, again, this is something I really like on cars and even like a little bit on other bikes, but I can't find myself wanting to do it on anything that I own. You know, they don't have the panel space and they have a lot more weird angles and shapes compared to cars, which kind of results in the art just kind of looking cut up and spread all over the place, so it looks less coherent. And really the only bike I have that has a ton of fairings on it is my Supercub, because my Royal Enfield doesn't have a lot of fairings, my Iron 883 doesn't either. And the other thing I want to mention is that even though my FXDR and Royal Enfield do have a fairly sizable tank, people need to remember this. Unlike a car where you sit inside of it, motorcycles you sit on top of them. So a lot of the designs can actually be concealed or blocked when riding anyways. My legs, especially my like upper thigh area, kind of covers a decent amount of the tank, and then me being folded forward a bit would cover any design on the top of the tank. This kind of already takes away a lot of real estate to do an Tasha design. It'll be one of those moments where it'll look great parked, but it'll look kind of strange moving. One reason I like a Tasha on my Z06 is Lucina looked great moving or still. Wheels. When it comes to cars, changing wheels is one of the most exciting things you can do, and it's definitely something I always get behind for almost every vehicle I've owned so far. However, of all the bikes I've had so far, not a single one of them has changed off of their OEM wheels. I don't know, it's not just a matter of saving money, sometimes it's also a matter of keeping me safe, but it's also because I think all the ones I've owned so far have really cool OEM wheels. Like, I loved my Night Rod's wheels, I love the 883's wheels, I love the Royal Enfield's wheels, I even like the Supercub's wheels, and I really love the FXDR's wheels. The stock wheels in the FXDR, like I've seen people do lots of custom modding to the FXDR, but they still keep it stock wheels, because the rear one, especially the solid rear drag inspired wheel with all the exposed bolts and everything, it just looks so cool, like a proper muscle bike, such a drag inspired look. It rides cool too. Yes, it does get a little bit caught in the crosswinds, but it's nothing unmanageable. I just genuinely love wheels. Onto the topic of safety though, when it comes to the wheel buying process of a motorcycle, it's not something you should be callous with, not nearly to the degree that some people are with cars. Like, I know rep wheels are still a huge taboo in the car community, and it's a very sensitive thing that people get super triggered and offended over if you, oh my god, the car community's turning into Twitter. Maybe this is why I'm slowly gravitating away from cars and towards bikes, but like, yeah, it's no secret that like rep wheels is like just a touchy subject for cars, but I'm gonna say this with a strong iron fist for the bike community, and again, because I know the bike community is not turning into Twitter like the car community is. When it comes to bikes, you only have 2 points of contact. You don't ever want to buy rep wheels, because if you even lose 1 point of contact, that's enough to send you to an early grave. Also, keep this in mind. Unlike car wheels, motorcycle wheels have to take leaning forces and significantly more torsional strain, and the lip of the wheel needs to be way stronger. Body kits or arrows. So when it comes to cars, I'm all for big wang gang, thick hips, stance nation, or wide body warriors. You already know it. Obviously, motorcycle arrow pieces don't have the same, I guess, classification or category as cars, but they have like their equivalents, right? You have people who do like fender deletes, chopped fairings, cafe builds, arrow scoops, chin fairings, you know, all this like race inspired or just overly cosmetic inspired stuff, sissy bars, ape hangers, and whatnot. You know, motorcycle cosmetic modding, I'm just gonna be honest with you, I said this a little bit at the beginning, I'm gonna build on it now, it just doesn't quite grab me the same way it does with cars. And these are things I have done to my cars. I put a new spoiler on my Mustang, and I've also done flashy LED, RPM, shift flight, carbon fiber steering wheel on my Z06. I've spent way more on that wheel. That wheel, by the way, costed more than all the performance mods for FXDR. That's how cheap performance mods are for the bike. I look back at some car mods I bought, and I'm like, did I really just spend $1,400 on a carbon fiber steering wheel that just has hot, flashy, funny lights? I'm gonna be honest with you, hell yeah, I did. But it doesn't capture me, again, with the motorcycle equivalent, like getting super flashy bars or custom gauges. I just don't care, I guess. I don't care about custom sculpted fuel tanks or fender deleting or like changing the fenders, chopping it, and yada yada yada. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong if you like all this stuff. If you're a motorcyclist who loves all that, more power to you. It's just so weird how the car equivalent of all those mods I absolutely adore, but for motorcycles, I just literally, like, I have zero true cosmetic mods on any of my bikes. I've never bought something solely for how it looks. I bought it usually because it serves some other purpose, whether it was maintenance or performance. Like, I have custom mirrors and custom grips because my old grips were wearing down. So if you don't know, motorcycle grips are not permanent. They obviously wear down because you're using your hands/gloves on them all the time. My old mirrors just kept folding now that my bike makes way too much torque and rips off the line. So I had to get new mirrors that actually stayed in place and don't fold. And I have a new seat because it's more comfy than my previous seat. And other than that, like I said, all those mods serve a purpose other than looks. They do change the looks of my bike. Not that much, but they served a purpose outside of just, haha, they look cool. It's at this moment I realize that, like, I'm not becoming a boring boomer. It's rather that I'm finally embracing sleeper ideology. Like, I'm not gonna lie, if you had asked me what my new favorite, like, potential dream car is, it's a V6 Honda Accord. Not because I like the V6 in it, but because I wanted to just LS swap it and twin turbo it, and I think that's funny, right? Right? Like, cars are so freaking expensive these days, like, you can't do anything fun for 50 grand anymore. It's actually tragic. So, like, if I can just buy, like, a used Accord for, like, less than 10 grand, and just turn it into a disgusting monster, something about that just clicks some things in my brain that used to never click before, and that definitely applies to what I think about motorcycles. And I just love that. I love having this feeling of being streamlined and incognito, like a passing memory to most people on their commute. Good. I got tired of being a bright yellow beacon screaming at people to race me, or a literal waifu warrior that ended up giving me major privacy issues. If you have been enjoying this video so far, before we move on to the final entry, how about you drop a like, and if you're already coming back anyways, then I'd appreciate it if you subscribe as well. The final mod I love on cars, but would never do to a bike, is a full exhaust system. This is definitely the most controversial entry in this video, but look, some guy on YouTube you watch doesn't need to agree with everything that you want to do. I'm sure a lot of motorcyclists do it and have already done it, and there's nothing wrong with that because again, your bike, your life, your money, right? For motorcycles, however, putting on a full exhaust almost always needs a tune. Now, let's be real, this is not what's stopping me. I've already dyno tuned one of my bikes, but I will mention this because unlike for cars where you can just quickly throw on an axle back or even a cat back and just call it a day. Also, deleting catalytic converters on a motorcycle is way smellier and way more annoying than it is on a car because it's directly underneath you. In a video that Fortnite made about this subject shows how most of the oxygen we breathe while wearing a helmet comes from directly beneath us. So I'm not about to deprive my brain of oxygen and impair my thinking because you really need razor sharp judgment when riding a motorcycle. So let me remind you, I'm the same guy who has a 4-foot flame spitting boosted Corvette, alright? I don't want to hear any viewer, especially new viewers, tell me I'm a wussy. If you don't know anything about my Z06, I have a whole vlog list that talks about all the videos I've made about that insane car and the stupid build that it was. So trust me, when it comes to an insane exhaust, I can go there. Oh, trust me, I've been there. I used to have butterfly valves in my Z06, but I kind of melted them from all the flames I shot, so I don't have them anymore. Even then, without the valves, I still have mufflers and a crossover mid pipe. I don't straight pipe. So believe it or not, my Z06 isn't too unbearable. I still go on cross-country trips with it. If I really don't want to hear it, I just kind of roll my window up, which should go without saying isn't possible on a motorcycle. You kind of just have to bear with the noise. So if you straight pipe or full system it drones a lot. It also can physically vibrate you way more. I just don't want to risk changing it too much. And I love the ability that it has some growl and some rumble, and that not everyone in a 2-mile radius needs to look at me like I have daddy issues. I know a common defense is usually the phrase loud pipes save lives, but drivers these days, I don't know about that one, because from wearing headphones to texting to using autopilot to a varied amount of other things for distracted driving, I think you, the rider, should be the foremost determining factor in your safety. Never ever expect a car or bad driver to notice you, loud pipes or otherwise. Always ride like you're invisible and treat everyone on the road as a potential risk. Don't expect them to see you, don't expect them to hear you. Always be prepared. The other reason I don't have a full exhaust system kind of goes back into the weird sleeper mentality I'm getting, because if I ever LS twin turbo to Honda Accord, not just a stock exhaust system, I'd go out of the way to add some baffles in the mid pipes, even if it lost 10 horsepower, because it'll be like, it won't matter, right? Like, and in terms of the motorcycle, it kind of applies similarly. It's no secret that people think Harleys are slow. Heck, even if they don't know about Harleys and don't know motorcycles in general, if they look over and just see a black motorcycle that doesn't have any super flashy mods that's also not blowing out their eardrum, most people, be it sports cars, other bikes, they kind of just tend to leave me alone. I go fast when I want to go fast. They don't need to care, and neither do I. It's a weird feeling of power, but also grace, because it takes a surprising amount of maturity to have all of this power and just not flaunt it everywhere. Always remember that power on 2 wheels can get you in a lot more trouble than it ever can on 4, so ride smart and stay safe. Thanks for watching, and if you love automotive content, make sure to subscribe and check out my other videos. Share to a friend or your pet rock. Until then, see y'all next time. Blade Angel out.